Hello, and welcome to another episode of Movies, they're pretty good. I'm your host, Travis Dudding, and returning from last week, because he's still here in California and staying at my house, is my brother Tyler.
Hello, and great that I'm still here, and there's a little bit of a correction. Actually, not a correction, but more a bonus bit from The Wizard of Oz that it was going to be made with Shirley Temple. But that was just a consideration.
Yeah, that's just something you forgot to mention last week?
Yes.
Okay, alright. Well, now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to this week's movie, which is 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Possibly spelled incorrectly. I feel like it should be dwarves with a V-E-S, but who knows?
Unless it's dwarf meaning mythical creatures.
Got it. Okay. So these are mythical dwarfs, not little people from life, from the big world in TLC. All right. So, getting started. Right off the bat, got our opening credits with the nice little medley of a few of the different songs. Anything you want to say before we get into the main movie?
Yeah, this is basically the reason why Wizard of Oz was made in the first place.
And what do you mean by that?
Because if you think about it, a fantasy movie like this wasn't really well known until this movie came out, but it was also considered to be the biggest gamble in Hollywood. They even called it Disney's Folly.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't think that audiences would be able to handle a full feature-length cartoon, basically. Even though this technically isn't the first one, you have a few like The Adventures of Prince Ahmed, and there's a couple other examples, right, from like early animation full feature movies, but this is like the first major studio and just wide release, correct?
Yes.
Got it. So yeah, it's so weird to think now because it's just so part of our culture, I guess, the part of pop culture, everything that there's just full-length animated films, but just back then they're still getting used to sound and color back then, so like now you're adding cartoons, like this is preposterous. But yeah, and it paved the way for so many great films and everything, so I'm glad it's here, and like you said, like probably wouldn't have Wizard of Oz without it, and so many other films too. So, all right, ready to get into it?
Yes.
All right. Like I said, opening scene with the little medley of a few of the songs. Would you had something to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of you see some of the credits of animators are some of the 9 old men like Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson, Ward Kimball, all the greats. Yeah,
that was the 9 old men. For those that don't know, those were Walt Disney's main guys, right? Like he had 9 head animators, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah. And so a lot of them are present here in these opening credits.
Yes.
Like you said, get a nice soft beige color going on there in the background. Then we see this nice elaborate white and gold storybook with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs on the cover, and it opens and you get like the intro and everything. Just kind of introducing the story, saying like, hey, there's this princess, then evil stepmother, and she's jealous and everything and doesn't like people looking better than her, and then as soon as the dad is dead, then she has full control and basically like hides her stepdaughter away and puts her in these like ratty clothes and everything, and makes her basically turns her into a maid, basically, even though she's a princess. right? Did I miss anything?
Yes, and this is not the only time that Disney does the book opening. 2 other animated movies from Walt's time. Actually, 3 others. There's Cinderella. There's Sleeping Beauty. And there's the Jungle Book.
Did Pinocchio not have a book opening in the beginning?
Yeah, but it was an animated book.
Yeah, you're right. It's not this live action shot we get of the book. You're right. Okay, so first, like, actual scene from the film, we see the evil queen, and what was it you were saying, that this is like one of the few times that you see the villain before the hero in the main story, correct?
Yes. And another example is Jafar in Aladdin and Mother Gothel in Tangled.
Yeah. So it's like we were going down the list of these the main feed Disney animation studios films, like the main canon of those, and yeah, it was Snow White, and then went down the list all the way to Aladdin, like, what, 60 years later, pretty much, almost 50 to 60 years later. So yeah, it's not a common thing, and I think that's just in cinema in general, I would say. Maybe, except for like The Dark Knight, that's another example I could think of in recent history. And I say recent history, and I'm going to feel old once I actually look how long ago, because that was 2008, and we're in 2023, so it's not that recent anymore. All right, so we see the queen. She's going up to her magic mirror, and she's summoning him, and she says slave in the magic mirror, so already problematic because she's pro-slavery. And she's like, hey, like, who's looking good in this kingdom? Is it me? And usually it is. It's like, yeah, you're the like prettiest in the whole world. And then, but I guess like Snow White hit the right level of puberty to where the mirror's like, actually it's Snow White this time.
And apparently a little known fact that there's a famous line in this. It's not mirror, mirror on the wall. It's magic mirror on the wall. Yep,
that's right. It is a magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? Yeah. So that's a very... I wonder if the original
Fairy tale.
Brothers Grimm had Mirror, Mirror.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was also in the cassette read-along book.
Yeah. There was a series of those in the early 90s, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Alright, so... Yeah, so Mirror's like, yeah, Snow White's hotter than you now, so... Like, and that's about it. And then, so Queen's upset at this, and then we see her looking down at the... out the window at Snow White. It transfers over to her. And we see her, she's washing some stairs and singing to the birds, just like whistling at them. And speaking of that, I don't know if you can hear in the background, but the cats are playing with a toy that is just a fake bird, and it's making a lot of noises. So if you hear bird noises, that's what that is. So she's singing to the birds. First, she's just like... doing a little bit of like, is she like whistling at this point? No, that's not really.
That's humming.
Yeah, she's like humming, and then she starts singing the song I'm Wishing. And so she's just like, I'm wishing for the one I love to find me today. So she's just singing to the birds and everything. She's singing down the wishing well, and the echo is coming out and scaring the birds. And then seemingly by echolocation from her high-pitched voice, the prince zones in on her, and he's like, seems to have a thing for these high-pitched voices, probably like a big Betty Boop fan, and he just zones right in on her, and he comes creeping over the wall, and he's spying on her, and then he's like, oh, I'm gonna go sing with her. And so he does. It scares her, but then she's like kind of into it. She runs away, but then she's like, oh, he was cute. And then he, like, kind of completes the song, and then... But, like, the whole time the queen has been, like, watching from the window and everything, and she's just not having any of this, and she's like, well, here's what I'm gonna do, and calls her huntsman over and is like, hey, I want you to take her out into the woods, and while she's out there picking flowers and everything, I want you to kill her. And the huntsman's like, whoa, wait, what? The little princess? No, I can't do that. And then she's just like, shut up, I'm the queen. You know what the penalty is for if you disobey me. And then he's like, okay, I'll do it. And then and she's like, oh, by the way, just to make sure you actually do it, bring me her heart in this box. And she has this like special box that like seems to have been pre-made, or maybe this is like a couple days later, where she waited to kill Snow White, so to have this like super elaborate box with a heart stabbing through, or a heart being stabbed through, but gives the huntsman that box and says like, go do this for me.
Oh, and for those of you who's played through the famous yet convoluted video game series Kingdom Hearts, the huntsman is not in the game. Instead, she manipulates Terra into doing it, who is one of the playable characters in Birth by Sleep, but Terra ultimately doesn't go through with it, and basically that would ultimately lead to a boss fight against the magic mirror.
Got it. So the mirror is in the boss fight. Do you fight the queen at any point during?
No, you don't, sadly.
Interesting. I have not played Kingdom Hearts. I'm like adjacent knowledge of the games, but that's about it. Okay, so yep, we see it cuts to the huntsman out with Snow White. They're out on the edge of the woods. You can see the castle in the background, so they didn't go that far. And she's just there picking flowers and everything, and he's like very hesitantly, he's like getting his knife out, and he's like ready to do it, and you see him like the music is swelling a little bit with the tension of the moment and everything, and he's coming up behind her, and you see the shadow and everything. He's got the knife up above his head, and then you just see his like hand like kind of shake, and then he drops the knife, and he's like, oh, I can't do it, and he's like, the queen, she wanted me to kill you. You have to run, you have to go hide, like never come back, like she wants you dead, she'll never stop looking for you.
And we get basically one of the more terrifying parts of the movie.
Yeah, so she runs off into the woods, and then she basically, like, I don't know if we missed the part where she, like, did a bunch of, maybe she was picking some magic mushrooms along with those flowers, because she starts hallucinating that every tree has, like, a face on it, and everything starts morphing into, like, these logs in the water morph into alligators, and, like, the trees, like, the branches turn into hands, like they're grabbing her, and there's faces and stuff like that. So she's like really freaking out, like as anybody would. But it is like it's done very well. Like where you see what it actually is, and you see it change into what she's seeing it as, and it's very well done. If anyone's been on the previous versions of the rides at Disneyland and World, it used to be, they pulled off how scary this scene is and on the rides, and it used to be like pretty terrifying, and they had to tone it down over the years, quite a few times over the decades.
But I wouldn't be too surprised with how scary it is, because Claude Coates was also credited to work on this movie, and he was one of the guys who worked on the Haunted Mansion ride.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, there was basically like three head designers for the there was like three main concepts of like ways that they could go with the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland. I say Disneyland because that's the first one, so that's when they designed it. It was for that park because that was the only one they had at the time. But there was like three ways they could go, like very scary, very funny, or just weird altogether. And Claude Coates was the scary one, right?
Yeah. And Rolly Trump was the weird one, and the funny one was Mark Davis.
Yeah. Yep. So you see a little bit of that, like, scary energy coming in. earlier in his career than a full 30 years earlier. So eventually she like does just like give up and kind of collapse into the middle of the woods and just out of fear, and she starts crying, but then everything kind of calms down around her, and we see that it's just these like little woodland creatures coming out to comfort her and like kind of see what's going on and everything, and just like little bunnies and deer and mice and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, basically they're like they wouldn't. It wasn't for them. We wouldn't have all the well-known animal sidekicks in the Disney Renaissance.
Yeah, exactly. So they so after she's kind of feeling a little better and everything, and she starts singing to them, we get this. It's with a smile and a song. Is that the title or?
Yes,
got it.
Because that was one of the songs featured in one of the Oh, by the way, for those of you who don't know, we only before the VHS release of this movie, which didn't happen until 1994, our exposure to this movie was through the sing-along videotapes.
Yeah. So a lot of like the home, like obviously like in the streaming era, it's like everything's so readily available, and then like we also grew up with home media, so that was another thing. But then before that, it's literally just like, hey, hope this comes to the movie theater, or hope they show it on TV. Otherwise, I'm never seeing this movie ever again. So like, I know I was spoiled with the home media era, and like my kids are even more spoiled now with the access, like just full access to everything, and who knows how it's gonna get. But it just used to be so sparse back then. But yeah, so she's there singing with her little woodland friends, and she's got the with a smile and a song, and so they do that for a little bit, and then she's like, oh, I need somewhere to sleep. I can't sleep on the ground like some degenerate. And so she kind of just like disses all these animals. It's like, definitely can't live like you. I need a house. So find me one. And then they hike for like 20 miles, it seems like, because they're like in a completely different area. And they come upon a small cottage, and they're like going up to it. Well, looks like no one's home, so it's breaking and entering time, and they get in there and just make themselves at home, like right off the bat. She's like talking about how dirty it is in there, and like also like commenting on how like the furniture's small, and it must just like, she just already like just jumps to the conclusion that it's children living there by themselves. Like these children just like left their homes and built everything to scale for themselves and whatnot. But then they start, she's like, oh, it's dirty, so let's start cleaning. And then we get the Whistle While You Work, which is a big... What's that?
One of the more well-known songs.
Yeah.
And
Big
also
time.
one of the inspirations for one of the songs in the 2007 movie Enchanted.
Yeah, Enchanted pokes fun at a lot of the stuff. A lot of the tropes that maybe started in Snow White and continue throughout, like having all these like animals help you do your chores and things like that. And so yeah, big time inspiration for Enchanted. Enchanted knocked it out of the park with their comedy and bits about all these different tropes from the old movies.
And it came out at a time when Disney changed leadership after changed direction with how to present itself, because it was getting demolished at the box office by the likes of DreamWorks and Shrek.
Yeah, that's right. This was those late 2000s were not the best for Disney. Like the only thing knocking out of the park Disney movie wise was Pixar and the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. That's pretty much it, right? In those mid to late 2000s.
Yeah, and also because of how cynical Chicken Little was.
Oh yeah. All right, so they're cleaning this house, and Oh yeah. So she's like, before the song starts, she's like gives all of the hard chores to the animals, and she's like, "Oh, I'll get the broom." Like literally, like the easiest thing, just to like sweep and everything. And so she like basically delegates all of the hard work to all her like woodland creature friends, and they're cleaning up and everything. Get a few good gags of like they're washing the clothes and they're using the turtle's shell as a washboard, and that one's pretty funny. Any other good ones I'm missing?
And there's like the cartoony looking spider.
Oh yeah, like the spider and the rat or whatever that live in the wall. Like all the pests that live in this house are like just getting pissed off that like, hey, why are you coming in here and cleaning this place? This is my home. You're ruining it, because they're like pushing the dust into the hole, and the mouse gets mad, and then they're cleaning up the cobwebs, and the spider's like yelling at them and doing a why I oughta with his fist at them. And so after like we see this little montage of cleaning set to the Whistle While You Work song, we cut to a diamond and various gem mine where the dwarfs are working, and this is where we get the digging song. Does it have another title? Because I know it transitions into Hi Ho, or is this just like the beginning part of Hi Ho?
I think it's the beginning part of Hi Ho, and I'm gonna list the names all of the dwarves.
Got it.
And they are Doc, Bashful, Sleepy, Happy, Sneezy, and Dopey.
I think you missed one. Grumpy.
And Grumpy.
Yep. Yep, so we got all 7 there. They're in this diamond mine, which looks amazing. I love this part.
And it looks way more amazing on one of the attractions.
Yeah. So they really did a good job, like, just going through all these, like, glowing gems and everything, and it's just super cool. Super, super cool. So they're digging, and it's a funny part of the song that it says, we don't know what we dig them for, but we dig. So, like, they're just out there, but they're not, like, selling, it's not, like, part of a business. They're not, like, taking these into up to the castle to sell them or anything like that. They're literally just like digging them and put them in the vault, and then they head home, because they like literally like when they're packing up and it changes to like the main Hi Ho part of the song, that when it's time for them to go home, they throw a bunch of stuff into the vault, and Dopey locks it with a key and then just hangs the key right next to the door. So it's like the key's useless at that point, because someone could just pick it up and unlock the vault, or the vault is useless at this point. But that's a funny gag. But yeah, they're just out there doing it for reasons unknown even to them. And then we see them walking home. They're marching home in line. We get like lots of cool shots of them on various landscapes, like walking across this like fallen tree bridge and stuff. Just really cool stuff. Really great backgrounds. The backgrounds are beautiful. I didn't mention that yet, but the amount of work that went into these painted backgrounds is just so stunning. Beautiful.
Oh, I forgot to add that earlier in development, there was originally going to be a whole scene where the prince got captured by the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And they know they were having a hard time animating male humans.
Yeah, that's why the prince is like barely in there, because for some reason they couldn't get like male faces right, except for the dwarfs, because they're like very exaggerated facial features, but the prince is just like kind of plain and barely in there for good reason. Like, he doesn't even have a name. He's literally just the prince or Prince Charming or whatnot. So just this nameless male shape. So cut back to the cottage. Snow White's and the animals are done cleaning, so they're going to go upstairs and make themselves comfortable in the beds. She realizes that there's 7 little beds, and she sees all the names, and is just like, still thinks that they're kids, and she's like, oh, these are funny names. She's roasting them, and she makes herself comfortable, lays across like 5 beds. The animals get into bed and everything too, and then as everyone's like laying down and sleeping, then the animals wake up because they hear the dwarfs coming, and they're singing and announcing to the whole world that they're on their way home with their song "Hi Ho." And so the animals just straight up ditch Snow White and just get out of there. They don't like wake her up or anything. Do they even try to wake her up, or they just like leave? Huh?
Yeah, they just leave, and then we did the first vocal performances of the dwarves. Mm-hmm. We get. I know Billy Gilbert is the voice of Sneezy.
Mm-hmm. These are their speaking voices as opposed to the singing voices, right?
Yes.
Got it.
And some of the dwarves are voiced by Pinto Colvin,
mm-hmm.
who was the original voice of Goofy.
Oh, okay.
And they found actors to voice the dwarves, but they couldn't find one for Dopey. However, there is speculation that Dopey at one point was going to be voiced by Mel Blanc.
Yes, and what makes that interesting is he is primarily a Looney Tunes voice actor, correct?
Yeah.
For Warner Brothers.
Correct, and they were going to do the same thing for Gideon in Pinocchio.
Yes. So he does like do voice work on Gideon, but it's mostly just like hiccups and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it was just a hiccup in the scene where Honest John and Gideon are talking to the coachman, making the deal.
Got it. But he was supposed to actually have dialogue at some point, I'm guessing early development.
Yeah, but there is a Mel Blanc character that did end up in a Disney project, but it's for the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Cousin Orville in the Carousel of Progress, which is at Disney World.
Got it. I didn't know he was Cousin Orville's voice.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then, of course, like, well, but was Mel Blanc doing the voice, or had he already passed away by the time Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out?
Well, that was his final performance as all of his Looney Tunes characters.
Got it.
But the only one he could not do is Yosemite Sam.
Got it. Okay. All right. So dwarves are home. Then they're coming up on the house, and they see that the lights are on in there. We get a lot of good dialogue from Doc, because he always like mixes up his words. So he's like, the light's lit, and stuff like that. And so they're like kind of freaking out, like, okay, who's at our house? Like, what are we gonna do? And then they sneak in. They're walking around in the downstairs. They're like, hey, like, what's going on? It's clean. Like someone stole our dishes, and then they ain't stole. They're in the cupboard, and stuff like that. And then they like, I think Snow White moves in her sleep or something, or like yawns, and then they're like, someone's upstairs. Like, something's upstairs. Like, let's go check it out.
Actually, it was. First, it was the birds playing tricks on them.
That's right. The birds are up in the rafters, and they're like hitting their beaks against the wood to make it sound like there's footsteps coming, just to like freak everybody out.
And there's some really good Foley work.
Yeah.
In this movie, the dwarf's footsteps on the clean floor, that was an old wallet.
Oh,
an old leather wallet.
Interesting. And then, so, once they finally do go upstairs, right? Do they all go, or they send Dopey first?
They send Dopey first.
That's right. So they send Dopey first. He gets in there, and all he sees is, because she has the sheet over her, and she kind of sits up and stretches for a little bit, and then before she lays back down. And so Dopey's like, nope, this is a ghost, and he freaks out. He's running down the stairs. But then they all freak out too, right?
Yeah,
and then they lock him out on accident.
Yeah, it's one gag after another, and then it's just gag after gag after gag. But Emperor's New Groove takes the whole gag after gag thing up to 11.
Oh yeah, it does for sure. So eventually, after Dopey falls into a bunch of like pots and pans and comes running out. And they think he's a monster. They beat him up, and then they realize that it's just Dopey. And they're like, all right, like there's a monster up there. We got to go kill it. Like, let's go. And so they sneak up the stairs again. This time all of them are together. And they go in, and they're at the foot of the bed. And then they realize, like, oh, it's just a girl. Like, okay. And then she wakes up and realizes that, oh, you're not kids. You're little men. And then immediately is like, oh, then she we get the introductions, but she's like wants to guess all their names, and she gets them all right, obviously.
And throughout the introduction of the dwarves, we see the full extent of their personalities.
Yes, exactly. We get to see Bashful being bashful. Get to see Sneezy. Yeah, we get a couple good Sneezy gags before this, where they're like trying to keep him quiet because he's sneezing while they're trying to sneak around and be quiet. And then we get Grumpy being grumpy, of course. I mean, we've already been seeing that at this point, but
I heard that I get the feeling that he knows about the Queen's reputation of her tappings into the dark arts.
Yeah, that's right, because they do ask her what she's doing there, and she said, like, oh, like, I'm hiding from the Queen, she wants to kill me. And then they're like, oh, like, who are you? And then, like, I'm Snow White. And then they're like, they immediately know who she is. So it's not like they're not completely disconnected from this kingdom, because they do know that just from her name that she's the princess. And then how do they get to the point where she's like, oh, because she's just already cooking, right? She had already like put on food, before they even showed up, right?
Yeah, the table was all set up, and
that's right. So they're like, oh, like what are you cooking downstairs, and what else can you cook? And she's basically like when she says gooseberry pie, then they're like, yeah, she could stay. And they get all excited, and they're running downstairs to eat, and then she's like, no, like, you gotta wash up first, and they're all confused, like, wash? Like, why would we do that? Like, and then one line I had never noticed, and I don't remember which dwarf says it, but they say, like, why would we wash? It's not New Year's. Like, that's literally, so what I'm getting is that they wash up once a year, basically, right?
Yeah, they're basically, it's kind of weird, but, there's a lot of stuff, and, and then they go off to wash, and then we get our next song.
Yep, and this is does it have a song? Is it just the washing song?
Yeah, it's the washing song, and,
parentheses.
Yeah. Yeah,
spelled out somehow, like bubble or something like that.
Yeah,
it's weird. And then like Grumpy's being all difficult about it, like he's not gonna wash, so they sneak up on him and trick him into get washing up and everything, and he's fighting them off, and then they end up putting a bunch of ribbons in his beard and everything.
Yeah, because he was making fun of them earlier, because calling them like little sissies.
Yeah. And then he's like, next thing you know, she's going to be squirting you with perfume or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Got you smelling like perfume. So they're all washed up, and they go inside to eat.
It was originally going to be there, but it got cut, and Ward Kimball, who was in charge of that animation, was upset about that scene being cut, but he got his next assignment, which was animating Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio.
Got it. Okay. So instead of seeing them eat, because we see them go in, but then it cuts back to the castle, and we see the Queen's doing her daily question of like who's the fairest of them all, and then the mirror straight up snitches on her and says like, oh, like she's in the dwarf's cottage, and it's Snow White, and she's like, impossible, she's dead. I have her heart, and he's like, the heart of a pig you hold in your hand. He's like rhyming this whole like time, but I forget like all of the lines, but I do remember that one. The heart of the pig you hold in your hand.
Ah, the huntsman, he tried.
Yep.
But the mirror ratted on him.
Yep, exactly. And they never say what happens to the huntsman. I assume he gets executed, but unless he ran away too. Oh, no, but then he had to like deliver that pig heart. But maybe after that he like got out of there.
But he got lucky. The queen dies before she did the chance.
Oh yeah, because she's just like, no, don't have time to deal with that. I gotta kill Snow White. So she's like, well, she grabs the Infinity Gauntlet. She says, fine, I'll do it myself.
Actually, no. She just goes straight to the dungeon. It's the common trope of villains if you see stuff like most Power Ranger episodes, like towards the penultimate and final episodes, after all the monsters are destroyed, the villain decides to unleash his own super weapon. But we did a battle. Unless you'll know more if you watch if you have your knowledge on Power Rangers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just a common trope across a lot of things of like having like the taking matters in your own hands because you like try to have like your minions or your servants do something for you and they don't do it right, so you gotta get in there yourself. That's why there's always a big battle with the main villain at the end of the movie or the end of the series or something like that. So she's down in her dungeon. She's got her spell book out.
Oh, we forgot when she was going down the stairs. We see the cape on Halloween, and there's this like whoosh.
Yeah, like the cape is like 10 feet long. It's just like whooshing all over the place, and she gets down her spiral stairs. And she's like all mad about getting tricked still, but she's like, all right, like first off, I need a disguise, and I'm gonna disguise myself as an old peddler woman, because who's gonna say no to an old peddler woman? And so she's going through her potion to like transform herself, and like, do you remember some of the ingredients?
Oh, the ingredients are mummy dust
To make me old.
To shroud my clothes, the black of night.
Yep.
To wage my voice, an old hag's cackle.
So she just has that in liquid form in like this like little what is that? The big round bottom flask or something. I'm trying to remember my Breaking Bad terminology, but I forgot. Sorry, Walter White.
And it's to wind my hair, the stream of fright.
Yep.
And then a blast of wind to fan my hate, and a thunderbolt to mix it well.
Yep. So she just holds her cup out the window. Lightning strikes it. She's fine and drinks it, and then we get the transformation sequence, which is pretty cool. A lot of like swirls and kind of it's hard to describe it, but it's like a lot of superimposed imagery and stuff like that. Really cool sequence. And then then we get the full witch reveal, where she's completely changed, and it's still the same actress doing the voice, right? And what's the difference?
Yeah, it is Lucille Laverne, and all she did is remove her false teeth.
Yeah, so she removes her false teeth for when she's voicing the witch, and so that's why she gets that like really good cackle and everything, and it just sounds perfect. Like, if you didn't know, like, you could easily believe that it's two different voice actors for the either versions of the Queen.
And there is a unnamed raven in that laboratory, not to be confused with Diablo from Sleeping Beauty, who belongs to Maleficent.
Yeah, this raven seems a lot more like scared of the witch or the queen, whereas Diablo's like more of a sidekick. This raven just happens to be there. It almost seems like it isn't too happy about it because he's very like scared of her.
Yeah, basically more of an audience lens.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then she says what's like the way she's gonna do it is create a poison apple to poison Snow White, right? And that's because we don't get any of the other stuff until later. Yep, that's right.
We don't get the. It's because there were 2 other attempts in the fairy tale.
Oh, okay.
It was a poison comb, and that was the first attempt. And it was a corset that was put on too tight, and that was the second attempt. And then it's the poison apple.
That's so weird, but I'm glad in this that they just stuck with the poison apple. I feel like that's a lot easier to believe.
And it's more iconic.
Yeah, it's so iconic, but we'll get more to that later when she's actually making it. We cut back to the cottage. They're all partying. They're dancing around. They're singing the silly song.
Oh, and originally there was going to be a song called "You're Never Too Old to Be Young," which ended up being in a 50th anniversary special that was hosted by Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're singing and dancing and everything. We get a nice iconic sequence of some of the dwarfs stacking on each other in not a trench coat, but that type of gag basically to dance with Snow White.
Technically, it's just Dopey and Sneezy.
Oh, okay, it's just 2 of them.
Yeah,
got it. So we get that dance sequence, and that gets recycled. That animation gets recycled later into Robin Hood, correct?
Yeah, along with animations from both Aristocats and Jungle Book.
Yeah, Robin Hood was... I like Robin Hood, but they very half-assed the animation on that. But a lot of shortcuts, but it is when they're like struggling a little bit because after the death of Walt, basically, right?
Yeah, and also it was just something that they know.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So after they're done singing and everything, then she's like, they want her to tell a story, right? They say, how about a story?
Yes.
Yeah, and so starts telling them about the prince that she met once and she's already in love with, and then she goes into another iconic song. This is the last song?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the final song of the movie.
But we did 2 reprises.
Yeah, exactly. So we get Someday My Prince Will Come, probably besides Hi Ho, maybe these are probably neck and neck for most iconic, memorable song from the film. What any of these nominated for best song?
That one happened until the next movie, which is Pinocchio.
Got it.
Which went to When You Wish Upon a Star for best song and also best score, which didn't happen again until Mary Poppins.
Yeah, exactly.
And then again with the Alan Menken, Howard Ashman stuff, like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin.
Yeah, a lot of those would get dual nominations and some wins. So it was nominated for... This one was nominated for best score, but not best song. Okay. It did not win. I don't know what won that year. Take longer for me to look up. But yeah, singing Someday My Prince Will Come. And then it's like, okay, like time for bed. And they're like, so most of the dwarfs, everyone except for Grumpy, is like, like you can have our beds. We're fine. Like we'll sleep down here. And she's like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you go ahead. So she goes up to bed, and then they all fight over the one pillow that's downstairs. Because Dopey tries to sneak off with it, but they're all like, nope. And then they all fight over it, and then the pillow explodes, and there's feathers everywhere. And then Dopey just uses a single feather as a pillow.
Yeah, another...
And they got like Happy sleeping in the cupboard, right?
Yeah, and Dot sleeping in the scene. And that clip ended up being used on Weibo's screen in the movie Flubber.
Oh, okay.
When she was waking up, when Professor Brainard got the idea of using Flubber at the basketball game.
Oh, got it. So, cut back to the dungeon. Now it's apple poisoning time. She's doing the recipe and everything. We see her pull it out, and we get the really cool, like the goop dripping down the apple in the shape of a skull. Really cool. They one time during Halloween at Disneyland, they had a candy apple that looked like the poison apple, and it was delicious. I could not finish it by myself, but it was really good. Those things are so messy to eat too. But yeah, really iconic imagery on that. Then this is where we find out. She's like, after she made the apple, it was like, better make sure there's no like antidote to get out of this. And she's like, oh, okay, like it could only be defeated, like cured by love's first kiss.
Yeah, that's where the queen's hubris comes in.
Yeah, because she straight up says right there, like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. She'll be buried alive by the time that happens. And she's just like loving this notion. She just like keeps repeating, buried alive.
Oh, and sometimes when I watch this, I channeled Captain Turk and yelled, "Come!"
Okay. Yeah, that part when Khan did a poison apple on Spock.
No, it's
I know. I'm just kidding. Okay, so she's heading down. She head down through a trap door in her little like dungeon lab, down some stairs, past a skeleton that's like hanging out of the cage, and she's like, "Oh, thirsty? Have a drink." And she kicks over the water bucket at him. She's just having a grand old time, like, with her premeditated murder. And but I love, like, she gets in a little boat. There's like a little dungeon dock down in the tunnels, and like I don't know what it is. Like, I love the idea like of having a dungeon dock, or like a little underground dock below your house or something with like a tunnel. Like, they need to put that as a filter on realtor.com, but they won't respond to my emails. Anyways, so she takes her boat and she's gonna head out to find Snow White. Luckily the mirror snitched on her and told her exactly where she is, so she has to find the one cottage with 7 dwarves living in it. And then so we cut to the morning where all the dwarves are getting ready for work. They're going to head back to the mine and everything. They're making sure that Snow White's going to be fine. They're alone, and asking if if she wants them to stay. And then she's like, no, I'll be fine. Like, you go ahead. And so they all head off to work. She kisses them all on the head. They're all like standing in line to get kissed on the head. Dopey like jumps through the window to get back in the line so he can get a second kiss. And then Grumpy's very hesitant, and when she does kiss him though, then he gets, it starts to have like some feelings, and like we actually get a little bit of character development there, right? Like a little bit of a character arc.
Yeah.
So then as they're going off to work, Snow White's back at the cottage. She's cooking with the animals, which is very unsanitary. She's trying to get all the dwarves avian flu, apparently, because you got a bird scooping flour onto the pies and everything like that, and they're stepping on the dough to make little lines on the thing. But these pies look pretty good. But as this is happening, we see that the witch is showing up. She finds the cottage. She goes up to the window, and she's like, what does she say? That she's like a traveler or something?
It's very ambiguous.
Yeah, she doesn't... We don't see her explain too much. She's basically just like, oh, you're making pies? How about I give you an apple? And stuff like that. And Snow White's like, for the most part, very hesitant and
very oblivious.
But yeah, also very oblivious, because she's like not like not really wanting to go along with this until she's like, oh, it's a magic wishing apple. Do you have anyone you love that you might want to make fall in love with you? And she's like, oh, yeah. Like, safety, stranger danger, what are those? Like, I could get this prince. Don't mind if I do.
And apparently the animals went off to go alert the dwarves.
Yeah, the animals like aren't buying any of this, so they take off. They go to find the dwarves. They're like pulling at them and like trying to get them to go. And they're like, first they're like, what's with these animals? They're going crazy. And then it's Sleepy that says like maybe the queen found Snow White. And then they're like, oh, dang, we gotta get there. And then the animals were like basically like, yeah, this is what we're trying to tell you. And then they ride the deer and stuff, right? Because there's enough deer for them to all ride. And they're taking off and trying to get back to the cottage as fast as they can. But then we see Snow White finally take a bite of the apple. And then she faints. And we see another iconic shot of her hand hitting the floor and the apple rolling out of the hand.
And you see the bite in it.
Yep, there's the bite. Witch is back on cloud nine. She's so happy. She starts laughing. She's exiting the house. It starts to like storm immediately, like after this happens, right?
Right, and originally there is a little bit where the prince actually escapes and fights off the guards and leaps over the walls to go save Snow White.
Got it.
And but that ended up being recycled later for Sleeping Beauty when Prince Philip fights off the goons to save to awaken Aurora. When escaping Maleficent's castle.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have, and they couldn't have kept that scene in anyway because they had already taken the part where he got captured and everything. And so it was like a full story arc. It makes you wonder how long the movie would have been if they kept all that in. At least like maybe it would have been like a 2 hour. Not only would have been the first movie, animated movie, like to make it big, but 2 hours, that would have been crazy. But yeah, so basically the dwarves show up like right as the witch is exiting the cottage in the rain and everything, and so they chase her out of there, and they're going after her, and she's going up some like rocky hill and everything, and they just keep going after her, and she finally gets up to like a dead end, like so it's either like a cliff or go back down, and so she's cornered, but there's a big boulder up there, and so she starts to, what's up?
Oh, and anyone who's been on the attraction in its original scary form, this was the last part of the attraction before the unload.
Yeah, exactly. So you basically would end with this part, and you never see that Snow White is okay at the end. But so yeah, she's there. She grabs a branch or stick or something. She's trying to pry this boulder to like send it down and crush them. They see that this is happening, so they're kind of like hold back a little bit, like hold on, like be careful. But it doesn't matter because a lightning bolt hits the edge of the cliff and crumbles it. She falls down the cliff. The boulder rolls back and falls off and presumably crushes her. They're not going to show that, obviously, but the kind of a double whammy. It's like she basically got double tapped by nature. If any Zombieland fans out there.
And this is the first Disney villain to die by falling.
Yeah, and that's a pretty common trope, right?
Yeah.
Gaston,
Frollo.
Yep.
Clayton's is more gruesome.
From Tarzan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he falls, but then with the vine wrapped around his neck, and you see the silhouette or the shadow of his legs dangling as he's hung himself by accident, right?
Yeah, it's a shadow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty gruesome, especially pretty gruesome. So yeah, then we see we see Snow White laying in bed, and the dwarves are mourning her. There's like candles lit. They're all pretty sad. They're around the bed and everything. Then Then we get another storybook page, right?
We get text over a tree branch.
Yeah, that's right. And then it's like saying like that the prince heard that there was a dead princess, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a little bit of a necro. I'm gonna head over there." So
unless he knew the answer from either the huntsman or the mirror.
Yeah, maybe someone like, "Hey, by the way, if you go make out with this dead lady, she'll wake up." And he's like, "Don't mind if I do." And he gets on his horse and he shows up. Gets down there, gives her a kiss. She wakes up right away. Like immediately like, "Oh, it's you," and then like gives him a hug, and then it's like basically it's like, "All right, like I guess I'm gonna go live the rest of my life with you," like right off the bat. And then she's just like goes into his arms, says goodbye to these 7 friends of hers that like let her stay in their house and kept her alive and everything like that. That was another thing. They like also kept her in a glass coffin because they like couldn't bear the thought of burying her. So she was just in this like lying in state, basically, like she's the president after they die. And but yeah, the prince comes and she's like wakes up and it's like, "Oh, okay, see you guys," and then just rides off into the sunset. And then we see like them like turn around and like wave as they're like looking up at the castle where they're presumably going to live, but the castle's like in the sky for some reason. So it's like maybe she didn't wake up, like maybe it's like a metaphor for death, and then they're just like going off into the afterlife together.
This is not can't remember the name of the person theory kind of thing.
What's that?
I think it's more of maybe it's like the castle from like a different kingdom or something, like the neighboring kingdom.
Yeah, I'm 99.9% sure that it's just an artistic choice to like have it like all cloudy and everything, but it does kind of make it seem like that, especially with so many like movies with random endings, like the end of Grease, where they just like get in a car and fly off into space, you know. So it just makes it interesting. But yeah, then that's the end of the movie right there. Anything big that I missed that you want to share with it?
Yeah, all I have to say is if it wasn't for this movie, we wouldn't have Wizard of Oz or Star Wars or any other big movie.
Yeah, it's like this and a few other ones that kind of paved the way for those types of films. And it is just like, there were some fantasy films. A lot of stuff got lost like over the years and everything, especially the silence and stuff. Because you did have like some silent era epics. Like Intolerance was a big one that like paved the way for a lot of stuff too, despite being made by a monster, D.W. Griffith. But yeah, it's just such a important film. Like even if it's like not the best Disney movie, like compared to like other stuff that would come later, it's important. Like you can't deny its importance to Hollywood, to storytelling, to animation, to film itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a good one. I do enjoy this one. It's one of the less problematic ones. There's a lot of stuff in some Disney movies where it's a little harder to watch for various reasons, but this one holds up pretty well, you know? And yeah, I do enjoy this one. I enjoyed this rewatch of it, and you know, I don't think there's ever a time where I like didn't enjoy watching it. It is just a good relaxing one too. Put it on and take a nap, you know? Right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So any final thoughts you want to share before we end the episode?
Yeah. This movie, it is important, and the animation is good for the time, but the next animated movie has way better animation than this one.
Yeah, it's the backgrounds are amazing on it. The dwarves look good, or any exaggerated, the animals and stuff like that. But where you could see it kind of aged poorly is in Snow White's face, the Queen's face, and the Prince's face.
Yeah, it's basically they used the Goddess of Spring to test human animation.
Yeah, that was the first color short that Disney did, right?
No, that would goes to Flowers and Trees.
Oh, I always get those mixed up. Goddess of Spring and Flowers and Trees.
Goddess of Spring tested human animation.
Got it.
And it's the old mill that tested the multiplane camera.
Okay. Yeah, the multiplane camera is pretty cool too. Like that was where they would put portions of the background on these glass plates, and they would paint it onto the glass, and they would have they would layer the background with all the glass, and so it looks like one shot coming down, but then they put the camera on top, and it would shoot down through all of the glass plates, so it looks like one shot, but it's like probably like 5+ different planes of glass, and they would just kind of zoom in through that. And then as soon as it would get too close to the one frame, you pull that frame, and then you'd zoom down to the other one, and it looks like it's just one continuous zoom. And like, I think that still holds up, and I think that looks better than a lot of animated stuff even today. Doesn't hold up to that, you know? Yeah. All right. Well, it has been quite a pleasure to have you on the last 2 episodes. I can't wait till the next time you visit, or next time I visit you, and we get to do a couple more episodes. I hope that the audience has enjoyed it, having you here, and just let me know if you want more guests and stuff like that. You know, if you like this format better than just me rambling by myself. I gotta say, like, I'm editing these a lot less because it's easier to fill silence with there's 2 people rather than me trying to catch my thoughts by myself, and then I have to edit out large gaps of silence. But it's just been such a pleasure to have you here, Tyler. You have been there with me. Like, you're part of my growing up and all this formation of this love I have of cinema. It was just me and you watching movies together, and so it was very important for you to be the first guest that I have here. So thank you for being here.
It is a pleasure.
Yep. All right, so until next week, I hope everyone is having a great February. It's flying by for me. January really dragged on, but February is just flying by. But yeah, I'm loving doing this for you guys. I'm loving doing the podcast. Follow me on the Instagram at movies. They're pretty good. No punctuation at all in that handle. That's where I'm the most active. That's where I'm posting what the next episode is going to be, and also where you can stream it. Well, as of when I post it, that's where you can stream it. If you're trying to catch up, you know how these streamers are. That's why I love physical media, is because you don't have to worry about HBO Max taking your favorite movie off or anything like that. And now you can't even trust that HBO is going to keep their own shows on there, because I guess they're taking Westworld off. So I got to see if that's still on and then finish season 4, because I didn't finish that. But yeah, thanks again for listening. I hope you guys stick around till next week. I hope to pick back up on the bonus episodes too for the Oscar stuff, but I just haven't had the time to see a lot of them lately, so I don't want to do an episode until I have something to say about something. But just stay tuned for those. If it pops up, it pops up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Then you know I don't have anything new to share. All right, that's been it for this week. Until next time, thanks. Bye.